bylaw requirements require us to have a quorum. I'll ask this director to please acknowledge our presidents, Walt Lashevsky, president, Bob Lilac,
Present.
Mindy Reynolds,
Present.
Steve Lawrence, Jim Beers,
Here.
present. All right, we have a quorum. Too much paper, yeah, excuse me for that. Okay, moving on to item number 2. Will you please join me if we pledge allegiance to the United States flag and the state flag? Pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pledge allegiance.
Honor
Honor the Texas flag.
I
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God,
one and indivisible.
All right, any comments from the general public signed up or anything? All right, any consideration for adjustments? Okay. All right, consent agenda. Any member have a question on any of the consent agenda?
I do have a question on the balance sheet. The difference between pages 8, which is December, and page 13, which is November. And there's a huge change in some of the numbers there. And I'm just curious what they're attributed to.
Tax collections is always larger in December versus November for the debt service fund.
We've seen a lot.
Well, how did we,
balances are gonna be near its lowest towards November. And then taxes are due January 31st, but a lot of them pay them in December.
but we're showing a negative asset and a negative liability section on page 8.
That's the due to for maintenance tax, it changes every month. It'll reverse itself probably December from January.
Still
That's
something,
what's being paid to the operating fund for maintenance tax from the prior month.
so I still don't understand what caused the huge difference between, like, on page 13, we have a negative 47,000, and that same number changes to minus 360,000. So what happened over the month?
Maintenance tax payments to the operating fund, the higher the collections, the higher that maintenance tax line item becomes.
So the minus 360, well, that indicates we owe, instead of having a positive asset, we owe 360,000. Is that correct?
We don't owe that. It's going to be, it'll flip as the collections come in.
So it'll flip back to the 31st when people pay their tax.
January,
Yeah.
once that payment's made and the deposit's made.
So between November 30 and December 30, that's an accounting number. So where did that difference come from minus 47,000 to 360,000?
The maintenance tax was in the check register. The maintenance tax for December was $357,000 alone.
And that
And it was 47.
that came from the SJRA, is that?
No, that's our where taxes get collected into the tax fund, and every month we pay the M&O portion to the operating fund, which gets higher in the December and January, and then it's almost non-existent throughout the summer.
And I guess I still don't understand it.
Do we have comparable numbers from last year? Does it
Is this a cyclic event that happens every year?
Absolutely. It's always the tax collections ramp up in the winter after the statements go out.
Last year.
It would be the same seasonal type activity, correct?
Okay. So,
Do you want to pull that out and get up with her?
no,
I mean, we're typically like 99% collected by, you say, July, June, so,
Probably by July.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
really a lot in the beginning of the year.
But the bulk of your money comes in December and January.
Yeah.
So it's, to pay maintenance in December, it's always gonna be a higher number than it was in November because of the collections. Because you have to pay the maintenance side,
so the taxes go out in
October.
October. Well, shouldn't that transaction occur in October instead of December?
You do book the beginning tax roll to receivables in October first, correct? And then it just kind of works out that balance all year long. And it
Okay,
gets a little strange because one fund is paying the other, but it will rule on things.
okay, whatever.
And taxes aren't late until the 31st.
So
So
they're not late till February 1, and they have 4 months to pay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I know.
if they go out in October, they're not late till January 31st. But the bulk of your money normally comes in really by the end of December. And we got all the mortgage companies before December 31st.
Aren't those taxes kind of the equivalent of a receivable, and receivables are a plus on the balance sheet, considered an asset?
Just have to look at the entry and see how it does.
We got money in, how did that go?
Yeah.
Small negative.
It just comes off the detail listings that when we plug them into the worksheet.
Okay.
I'll have to get back with you.
Okay.
we don't have anything in our tax code that allows people to pay quarterly, do we? Like the county does.
Yeah. It's
We do
like,
for people over 65, they can do that. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yes, it's a
That's
state
somebody
law.
asked me.
Yeah, so we have to honor it.
Okay.
They have to request it, right?
Yes, they have to request it and we have to honor it. Their mortgage company doesn't have to honor it, but we have to.
Okay.
So they have to send us sign a form every year.
Okay.
And
The
then,
other thing on the consent agenda, did you notice something on the minutes of the meeting? The wrong name?
we've already taken
Taken
care of that, yeah, so,
Okay.
I do have another question on, I guess is now is appropriate time. The exemptions on page 28. Says 10,000 over 65/disabled. And 20% residential homestead. Is that an either or?
Yes, it's either or.
Okay.
You can't have both.
And we'll discuss the exemptions under item 14 as well.
All right, I move that we accept the consent agenda.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, moving on to right agenda, review and consider approval of the district fiscal year draft audit report. Yes, sir.
Maybe start with an apology. We didn't update PSIA, which is a listing of the directors and so forth from last year. Kind of a left-hand, right-hand thing at our office. But so we'll get that updated. I have the correct information. It's just not in your report.
What page is that?
Page 44. 44 and 45. That's all last year's information. Jennifer thought I would update it, and I thought she updated it, so just didn't get it done, but we'll get it fixed for the final.
Okay, any comments?
I went smooth. I can go through the report if you'd like me to, just to kind of give you the basics. Otherwise, I'll just open it up for questions.
Anybody have any questions?
Just so you know, Brian and I are doing our review as well. We aren't quite finished with it, so we'd ask that you approve it subject to our final comments.
We vote on it next month. Correct.
You can still go ahead and approve it.
I mean, we could approve it, but we vote on the final next month.
What we normally ask is that you approve it subject to any modifications, and if, of course, if anything's significant, then we would come back to you. It's due to the TCQ February 13th. So what our normal procedure is we get approved subject to any changes from the attorney or from us. And any information that we consider significant, we obviously bring back to the board. But, and then we'll finalize it, get it to the attorneys by the end of the month. And that gives them a couple weeks to get it to the TCQ.
Any comments, questions? All right, do I have a motion?
We haven't had a chance really to review it, but I guess the escape clause is that we can approve it subject to any changes or discussion next month.
Absolutely. If, next month, we could, we'll be late to the TCQ. But what we normally ask is that you approve it. And if you see any changes, if any y'all see any changes, you can email me directly and, or through Maureen, and we'll get those into the report as well.
When is this due with TCEQ?
February 13th, it's 135 days from year end. So I think that's like the 13th February.
Well, I make the motion that we approve the draft financial report subject to any last minute changes.
All right, is there a second? Second. All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye, any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. You know, this stuff comes out on Fridays. So, you know, we have an opportunity to review things. All right, item 14, grant exemption for taxation, page 26. Any comments?
So this is the resolution we prepared. We went ahead and plugged in 20% as the homestead, which is what y'all did last year. On page 28, you can see what you offered last year. You offered your residents 10,000 for over 65 or disabled, and then a 20% homestead. Section 1 has that blank. We can fill in 10,000 if you want to offer the same amount. I think we'd feel comfortable if you wanted to increase it slightly, you could. If you wanted to do a big increase, we would probably want to run it by your financial advisor. But you can see what you offered last year and the other months offered last year.
Any comments? You know, we've offered 10,000, I think, the last couple of years, so.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it.
All right. This is only either or, right? Is that what you said?
The over 65, yes.
Yes.
And disabled, it's either or.
Over 65 or disabled, but you get if you're over 65 or disabled, you get that as well as the residential if you own your home.
Yeah, the homestead, if it's your homestead, everybody gets it, yes, but
That's what I thought.
yeah, but on the over 65 or disability, you get one or the other. You can't have both of them.
You don't get 10,000 if you're over 65 and 10,000 if you're disabled.
Right.
Oh, that, okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were referring to the homestead exemption and the six.
No. You
That's
never
it.
get
So you get
homestead.
either 10,000 or 20%.
No,
Yeah.
you get 20% on your homestead.
Also,
If you own your home.
The only thing that changes is the over 65. And if you're over 65 and disabled,
Okay.
you have to pick which one you want it on.
Yeah, 10,000, 10,000.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
I'll make the
So-
motion that
so
we keep.
let me go over that again. So you have, if you're over 65 and disabled, you can either get 10,000 or 20%, or you get both.
No, you get both. The
Okay,
homestead is for everybody that
Okay,
is their
okay.
homestead.
okay.
It only reflects the over 65 or disabled. That's the
Okay.
only thing it's,
So that's an
Different.
additive to the
Yes.
20%.
Correct.
Are those
Okay,
values disabled, what's the deduction for disabled versus over 65? Are they
Whatever you
equivalent?
adopt, like right now, it's 10,000 for both, okay? But you only get 10,000 on one.
Yeah, but doesn't make any difference, right? I mean.
No, it doesn't make any
10,000.
difference, no.
It's based on the tax code, so you
Right.
just can't get 10,000 for over 65 and 10,000 for
10,000 for
disabled.
so in my personal case, since I'm over 65 and disabled mentally, I get the 10,000 and the 20%.
Yeah.
Yes.
You've been getting that for
Yeah,
how long now?
Okay, I make a motion that we have 10,000 for the over 65 and disabled.
I s-
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, we see the SJRA report. Nobody's here? Okay. Anybody notice anything in the report? Concerned about? They had a lot of information in there. Spring Creek study.
Yeah, I passed out an update. There was a update meeting. If you recall, that it was put on hold as the contracts expired and were redone last fall. And that was completed, I think, November, December. So they got back up and running. And then there was an update meeting on December 16th, of which I've handed out a copy of what was presented. So you can peruse that, and they're working on finalizing the report, and there's some information on that in this packet. If you have any questions.
So nobody from our mud attended that meeting. Nobody from our mud was invited.
I was there,
I'm talking mud one.
understood. Wasn't aware of that until I got there and realized. But I thought I'd share this because it's been on your agenda.
All right, thank you. We don't have to make a motion on this or anything.
No action.
All right. Item 17, consider an act on the draft water reclamation facility number 1 decision matrix.
Okay. You are one of 3 months that have not completed this yet. 7 completed it in December. They have meetings. What we've done in the other muds is go through the matrix and kind of walk down each one and decide as a team what you prefer to select. If you recall, the matrix has kind of a worksheet that contemplates choosing one criteria over the other, whichever you value most, and then just putting that one number in the column. What the other muds have done is literally go around the room and kind of organically just talk through it. Some get real easy, some get a little bit tougher. And then sometimes there's compromise depending on how things fall out, but it's gone very well. So I don't know if that's how you want to do it.
I think that'll be fine.
Okay. So I don't know if everybody has filled one out or has the sheet.
Is that good to fill one out?
I haven't filled it out. I'm having trouble with it. Basically, I think all of those concerns are equally important. I don't know how you judge community impact. Is it more important than safety? Is the cost of installation, maintenance not have a community impact? It does. So, personally, it's like if I were to go into a car dealership and they said, well, which would you prefer, brakes or steering? I want both. And I want all those. So, I don't know how to make that choice. I just don't. I think we're paying the engineering consulting firm money to solve our problem for us, not to ask us what we want. I think that I would like them to select the solution that they would select for their own community. If they were paying for it and it was servicing their family and their friends, which one would they pick? That's what I want them to do. Sorry.
No, I don't disagree with you either. I just think this is, we'll go through the exercise, but I think that's, I've never seen anything like this in
I did.
my career in engineering and construction.
My daughter
It's
did
very
it in
common.
second grade.
It's very common
I mean,
when trying to make a decision on what you value most.
I value their expertise on telling us what the industry is doing out there. And
Well,
what,
yeah, they're going to incorporate that into the design, but there's 4 options being contemplated. So each one of those 4 options are valued a little different in these various areas. For instance, constructability. One may be easier to construct than the other. What do you value? Do you value the easiness of construction or the long-term maintenance? Those have two different, the plant is going to be designed per the professionals, any one of the four options. This is just an exercise to identify what you value more. They're going to take care of the technical aspects of it once it's completed or once it's being designed. So
But you're asking me, I have to agree with Jim, you're asking me to vote on operation and maintenance and constructability, and I haven't really seen the plan, so that's kind of hard to come up with, you know.
it's not talking about the specifics of it necessarily. It's talking about the idea of operation or maintenance. Do you want more fluid, lower cost operations and maintenance? Or do you want it to be harder to construct, for instance?
You know, these are all very subjective and harder to construct. How much harder? I mean, it's a very subjective evaluation and not being an expert in
Again, you're
water.
not basing it on one of the four options. You're not supposed to be.
Mhm.
So that shouldn't come into play. But however you want to do it. Like I said,
Well, I think we all agree, you know, but let's just go through the exercise and we'll turn on in. So does everybody have their sheet?
No, I didn't bring it.
Do we have sheets that,
yeah, I've got extras. Bob, you sent yours. So one of the things that had changed is the previous, let's see if I've got extra copies. Y'all don't need to fill anything out, but we'll refer to it. So one of the things that's changed since you saw it the first time was there were 7 categories. Now there's 6. There is a definition sheet that really helps. And it really helps define what each of the 6 are. That was not available when you looked at it with the 7 categories. So if you hadn't seen that, we've sent it out a couple months ago now, but that would be really valuable to review.
okay. Let's go through and we'll see if we can come to a consensus.
Okay.
Well, or the other thing is, one of us can take the sheets from everybody and kind of average them.
I thought we agreed on that in November and it
Yeah.
didn't get done.
Yeah, so rather
That's
than
why we're here.
spend a lot of,
Yeah, I've received 1, so if they're ready to go, send them to me. I can do that. I only
okay,
received.
so you want to do it, or I mean, I
I'm
can.
happy to. I
So
just.
Steve and I still need to fill, or Jim and I need to fill ours out.
I haven't filled it out.
Okay,
All right, if you two will fill it out. And
I only received one from
Steve
Bob,
didn't. Yeah,
so
so
I'm
there's
happy,
3 of us.
they're fine.
happy to do that too. An average amount. That's easy enough.
Okay, why don't we do that?
Okay.
and,
Both of you two can get it in and.
Can I have that definition?
yeah,
Sorry, when do you need this?
As soon as possible. I need to submit it to the consultant by the end of the month. So we have a couple weeks, but give me, at least get them to me so I can have a few days to collate all 5.
Walt, where's yours?
I gave it to Bob. It's,
Well,
okay,
it's gonna
so,
get lost in your papers.
Yeah, you grab me the 2 that have been completed.
okay, so,
That's fine. And I will get it done.
Okay.
Easy
that
enough.
top one's fine. I didn't put my name on it, but if you want. if you-
Oh, okay.
It's put my name.
Will do.
Okay, then moving on to item 18, consider and authorize Garber Engineering recommendation.
Okay, let me get my paperwork back up and running. All right, get that done. All right, so if you'll recall, a couple years ago, there was a sanitary sewer evaluation. And coming out of that, it was determined that there would be some sanitary sewer rehabilitation. I think this was 2 or 3, probably 2 years ago. And the decision was made by the boards to break it up over 3 years. And so last year you completed, and this was all MUDs having a share in pieces of your system, of your sanitary sewer system. And so last year, about October, November-ish, phase one or year one was complete, construction was complete. While phase one construction was being done, phase two was being designed. And phase two got complete and it was bid here recently. That's what you see here in front of you. Now phase three is in design, and so we'll look at that towards the end of this year for next year's budget. But in this year's budget, you had this project to be completed, your share of it. Garver was the engineering consultant that designed the project. They publicly bid the project. This was back in November, and they received 2 bids. Low bidder was Texas Pride in the amount of $1,447,008. It just so happens that the low bidder in this case was in fact the same contractor that did phase one. So I think they, I think with their familiarity of working with the Woodlands, working with this contractor or with the engineering firm, working with us, they kind of felt, I would guess they felt comfortable with, you know, the going through phase one. That probably had something to do with their bid. Ironically, the bid was within $1,000 of the engineer's estimate, which is incredible. Yeah, it is. Your share of the project itself is about $128,000, $128,860, I believe. So you don't have a very large portion of this, but by TCQ rule, we need to bring this to you for concurrence with the recommendation of award, which is what Garver has provided.
So what was Garver's bid price?
Their engineer's estimate was $1,446,083, and it came in at $1,447,008. So less than $1,000. Incredible.
So that's
$1.5 million.
that's higher than the Texas Pride bid. Is that correct?
Sorry,
You said Texas Pride bid 1.14 million.
no, 1,447.
Oh, 144. Okay.
Yeah, the high bidder was actually NVT at 1767.
So the Garver bid was just very, very slightly higher than Texas Pride, but because we had prior experience.
Garver is the engineer.
Engineer.
Texas Pride and NVT are the 2 contractors that
Oh,
bid.
okay.
Texas Pride came in at 1,447 and NVT came in at 1,767.
Okay.
So Garver has the responsibility as the design engineer to make recommendation of award to the most advantageous bidder. That's how the statute reads. And in this case, most advantageous bidder. The reason that's worded there, it's not always the low bidder, because there could be reasons why you wouldn't go with the low bidder.
Yeah.
In this case, we don't have any concerns with Texas Pride. They are the low bidder. They did a good job in phase one. And so Garver felt no reason to kick them out of giving the recommendation award. So
All right, I make the motion to authorize Garver to award the contract to Texas.
I second.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposed, motion carries. I just have a question. Let's read this. What determines what we have to vote on and not vote on? We normally don't vote on when you go out with contracts to contractors or good things. I mean, why do we have to do this particular one? What's so significant about this one?
this is the first one I've had. This is TCQ rule. As an engineer, that's standard, normal practice for me.
This one was publicly bid, I
Yeah.
think is the difference. Because of the size of the contract, it had to be publicly bid. And, so y'all are required to concur with the recommendation.
That may be the
Well,
trigger point.
But if you have a failure, like say, which was Lake we had out there, we had the failure. You know, and you had to go out and hire a contractor. I mean, we didn't bid on, or we didn't approve who you
No.
hired.
Yeah. That's not necessarily
What's the
capital.
difference?
Normal, you probably know more about this than me as an engineer, but normal operation and maintenance isn't required to be publicly bid. This is a construction project. And so it has to be publicly
So
bid.
this is considered a capital project, whereas the Wedgewood was a repair and maintenance.
Right.
Okay, so that's a
So
good.
just
Yes.
Okay,
what they would classify as normal maintenance and operations doesn't have to be.
And that's correct. And there's a magnitude trigger. And so I believe it's now $250,000, I believe, is the high. If the engineer anticipates that or estimates that a project would be over $250,000, then you must publicly bid it. When you publicly bid it, you provide all of the approved engineering drawings, and then you physically advertise the project out for bids to the public. And then any contractor has the opportunity to bid, and that's what occurred here. Something like that on an emergency basis, it was a small amount and it's a repair item. We have the ability to go fix those.
is there a threshold if we have a repair item out there that we need to be involved in? Like if all of a sudden it turns out to be $3 million, let's say, repair.
Potentially, if it were an emergency situation, what I've seen in the past is you can notify the TCEQ of the emergency. Typically, they won't hold you up just for that technicality. But I mean, if it got really big and weird, then, we would have to do some kind of documentation with the state to confirm that we are not, or we don't have time to do, because the bidding process takes 60 to 90 days. So on an emergency basis, you wouldn't have the time to do that if something, but I don't, very rare that I've even seen that. So it typically isn't an issue. Like for instance, on a lot of the ditch stuff. So I'm going to speak to this here in a minute. We're starting to run the ditches. What I mean by that is we're going up and down every ditch. We're identifying the assets of every ditch across the whole Woodlands. And we've encountered in another district a very significant issue that is beyond us hiring a contractor and just getting it done, fixing some little minor pipe or siltation. It's going to take engineering, and it's going to be a project. It's going to be a specific, issue that they're going to have to probably budget separately for, and that type of thing. So something big like that, we go get engineering and go get it done. If I'm repairing something that's already been engineered, then I can pull the drawings out and say, put it back the way it was, And typically those like even Wedgewood, I mean, it certainly started to escalate just when we encountered multiple pipe failures on that, but that ended up being 60, 70,000. So it wasn't anywhere close to the trigger points.
Okay, I was just wondering why I was reading it.
So repair and maintenance items are typically time and material, where capital items are a fixed price.
That's fair. I think that's mostly accurate.
Okay.
Thank you very much. 19 attorney's report.
Nice to see y'all again. Brian apologizes for not being here today. He had a meeting conflict, so had to go to a different meeting. But it's nice to see y'all again.
This meeting.
You're much better looking than Brian.
He doesn't have an assist on the other district, and I've been helping him with the Woodlands for several years, so, but there's nothing to report under the attorney's report today. But I do have item 20 to discuss with y'all.
Any comments on the legislators coming to anything going on there?
I haven't heard much yet. We have a few people from our office who've been already going to Austin some, and so they'll be updating us, but I haven't gotten any updates yet.
Okay. Are there any bills out there that we're concerned about this session that would affect us?
I think that I don't want to misspeak because I don't know the details of them. I think that just like every session, there are some bills that are anti-mud, I would say. So we'll kind of see what happens with those and can tell you more about them later.
Good, thank you. Item 20 then.
Okay, item 20 is a memo that we prepared for y'all. And it is about PFAS, which you may have heard a bit about now. These are per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. And the EPA in April 2024 published their first regulation regarding PFAS in drinking water. So these are substances that are man-made. They're called forever chemicals. And this is the first time that the EPA is actually going to start regulating them. So this memo is a summary of that regulation and how it's going to affect us as MUDs. There are 2 deadlines to be aware of. We have to complete some testing, which they're calling initial monitoring, That deadline is April of 2027. So we'll have to test our water sources, and SJRA will be doing that as provider of the water. And then if those levels are above the EPA's limits, then we do have to put our remediation to get the levels to an acceptable level, and that would have to be finished by 2029. So we have to have all of our testing completed April 2027. And then if we do have to lower the levels, we'll have to do. Right now, this is a very new thing. And so there are some types of filtration systems and stuff that are in the works to where you can better filter the water to get rid of these PFAS. There'll be a lot more about that to come if that does come up. But if we do have to, if we do have levels that are over the limit, then we'll have to get them to the right limit by April of 2029. And so at this point, we just wanted to provide you a summary of it, and then to get your authorization for Eric to work with SJRA to set up the initial monitoring schedule. So to schedule our testing within the required deadlines. There's different deadlines for different types of public water suppliers. So it depends on how many people you're providing water to and lots of other criteria. So SJRA will need to come up with a monitoring schedule that meets the requirements of this regulation and comply with it. And then it's in the next step session. So what we're asking for today is to authorize your GM to coordinate with SJRA to ensure an initial monitoring schedule is developed, which complies with the above deadlines. In the event initial 12-month testing reflects PFAS results in excess of the MCLs, SJRA will be required to implement a compliant solution and reduce those levels no later than April 2029. So this is just the first step, is authorizing SJRA to get started on the testing. And there has been some PFAS testing that was included in the UCMR 5 testing that you'll do each year. And Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the MUDs were not showing PFAS in the water.
Yeah, five of the 10 MUDs have finished the EPA testing. The other couple will be this year, and I think the last will be next year. And so there hasn't been any PFAS detected in any of those samples. So one of the districts asked for just a kind of a summary of what the results have been. And so we're working on that, and we'll send that out to each of the MUDs once we have it prepared.
So there's not an additional cost to this, right? We already have the equipment and or SJRA, they can do this. They're already set up to do it, right?
SJRA can do the testing. I do think that there'll be some cost involved. But this testing is slightly different than the testing that they were doing under UCMR 5. This is more chemicals. I think they're testing 26 types. So there may be some costs involved in
That
that.
hit their budget, SJRA's budget.
Likely, which comes back to you.
Yeah.
It's the same. And, you know, the sampling,
Just testing.
The testing.
Is the testing a continuous thing or like a yearly thing or?
So it is, and it depends on what type of water provider you are and how many people you're serving and things like that, which comes up with a schedule of testing, but it's not a one-time test. It's recurring.
When you say it comes back to us, like in our cost of water,
Mhm.
that's all, okay.
yeah, through SJRA's budget.
Right.
So all testing that we do or they do, we hire out a testing lab to do it. So neither one of us are doing any specific official testing. It gets sent out to a testing lab. There's a couple in the area that do it. And so that's the cost, is hiring them to go grab the samples and then do the analysis and identify the results. So we do that every day across the Woodlands, and every day, every month. So this is just an additional to that basically
Right.
bank of sampling that we do.
Okay.
A government mandated additional sample.
Yes,
Federal
this is the
mandate,
yes.
EPA's first federal regulation for PFAS. Like I said, there'll probably be more to come, and there'll definitely be more to come on how to actually remediate the levels of PFAS in your system. Hopefully you know, in the woodlands, we don't have levels that are above the legal amount.
Is this a level that they can change later? I mean, or is this like, once you're in, you're done? No grandfather. Okay.
No, whether it's state or federal, levels of maximum contaminant level, MCL, is what we call it. Those change all the time, and they don't usually get less stringent. They usually get more stringent over time. So who's to say? I mean, we don't have any. So the other thing too is if we have a long track record of not having them, then, you know, maybe there's an out after a few. I don't know. I don't know how they're gonna handle this since it's very new, but ideally, if we show a track record of not having it, maybe it goes away. I don't know.
You know, I think this is a no-brainer on the authorization, but I'm just curious if, isn't this more of a board of trustees or a Woodlands Water issue? I mean, this is not just a district issue. I mean,
Well,
it is
you have your own public water system ID, so I would say that the mud at least, I mean, all muds need to comply, so it's not really, I think this is kind of administrative to accept this, because you have to do it. It's just more of a notification that this has come down and we need to do it. We need to comply. So
Okay.
it's not really an ask, it's more of a concur, if
Yeah.
you will.
I mean,
Say yes to what you have to do.
Yeah, but because y'all do.
I
supply
understand
public
that, but
water,
I'm just
each
saying,
mud is-
this is not a mud one issue. It's
No.
not a mud issue.
Because
Like
every
we
public
said,
water supplier across the country, so the cities, MUDs, regional water authorities.
It's more of a national issue when you come down to it. All
Absolutely.
right, I recommend that we authorize the general
Well,
manager.
I don't think we need a vote on it. It's just a discussion, so.
I think we should take a motion just to have it in the minutes. I think if anything, it shows that y'all have, you know, we discussed the memo and that you're asking SJRA to prepare that monitoring schedule.
Real quick, this happened last night, actually. The item does not show act on. And so
Oh, it says discussion.
Brian suggested that a concurrence to direct your GM to handle this is.
Yeah, because I understand if it doesn't have the word and act
Okay.
on,
Notice it didn't
we
say act.
can't.
Yeah.
We didn't either at the time.
Yeah,
That's how it was handled.
yeah, I probably should have said act on, but I think either way, if you concur to have Eric work with SJRA.
Okay, I think we all concur then.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, item number 21, update One Water Task Force.
Have no update.
I will say that Eric and I had a meeting with Jason Millsaps. Was in December, and I think we had a very good meeting with him. And we learned a lot about the issues that he's dealing with. And he also expressed an interest of being on the One Water Task Force, if not a member, at least an attendee of our meeting. So it was I would say a positive meeting, would you say?
Sure. Yeah, I think it was expressed that there's not a whole lot that he can perhaps help with
Yeah.
in the immediate things that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
But I can give you an update on kind of the two projects that were previously contemplated in One Water.
Mhm.
One, you got an update today at Spring Creek and where that's heading. And then the other one was the Bear Panther drainage improvements project that is under study. And so the stakeholders of that project, there's 6 of them, had instructed the engineer to go back and do some additional scenario modeling on some different scenarios, because the initial scenario came in at a high cost estimate since 2 years, since before the economy had changed. So the funds available were not sufficient to complete what was originally contemplated. So they went back to the drawing board, and they have completed that additional drainage modeling scenarios, and we'll be presenting that to MUD 67 this week, and then likely we'll have a stakeholder meeting shortly thereafter to present that to all the stakeholders and see where it goes. So those are kind of the two major drainage issues or projects that we're kind of running, coinciding.
So we didn't, there was one meeting at all?
What I had suggested at the beginning is that we schedule it when needed, and so I don't know that there's anything pressing at the moment. Besides those two projects, which are currently going forward. I don't want to have a meeting just to have a meeting. I guess my point.
Well, I think we need to have a meeting to ascertain whether or not we're even gonna continue with it. I mean, we're not doing anything. You know, the township has asked us to take the lead on it, and then, I mean, we're not doing anything.
What would you suggest we do?
Well,
What is the,
I would suggest that we look at two things, how are we gonna fund it and who's gonna run it?
what are the issues that that group would tackle right now?
Well, we have drainage issues out there. We've got, flooding issues that we've had previously, and what's being done about it.
Those two projects that would identify that, or I just summarized. I mean, that's what's going on. There wouldn't be anything for one water to contemplate at the moment, because both of those projects are in design or study. Not design, both are.
But I thought we were gonna try to team up from a regional standpoint also.
The regional thing was kind of shot down by the county.
Well,
We certainly agree with you. It's just running into a few of those issues.
I guess we'll just wait till the next, Harvey hits us, and then, we'll look at the residents and say, well, get back to where you were 5 years ago. Okay, let's move on then. General Manager's report.
All right, I have a couple updates. As I mentioned a minute ago, we have been running the ditches. Kim has worked with our GIS consultant to utilize a GIS app that allows us in the field live to identify each asset as we encounter them. We can drop a pin, we can take a picture, we can identify the size, the shape, the type of pipe, the condition, and we can document it right then and there. So right now, across the entire Woodlands, we're building an inventory of all of those ditch assets into our GIS system. What that will do once that's done is we'll extract that data when we're done and build capital improvement plans, identify if there's any immediate issues that we need to tackle, identify what budgets because we've set aside some monies in all the budgets to identify, a pipe, let's just say a pipe collapse, one or two in each district. So depending on what we find actually out in the field, we'll likely come back to you and say, hey, we did find a couple in your particular district. We do have budget for them, we'll do it. If there's 10 of them that we don't have budget for, then we'll have to work that into future budgets or into a capital plan and identify a plan to get them done over time. So what we're mostly encountering so far is a lot of what we call back slope interceptor piping. That is corrugated metal pipe, CMP is what we call it, and it is disintegrating. And when it does, it starts to create big sinkholes. Because as you can imagine, the pipe disintegrates and it just starts pulling in all the soil from around it until it's all washed away. So we've got significant, as I suspected last year when we started, when Wedgwood happened and we had a couple others around the Woodlands, I suspected this was going to be an issue, and it will be. Just a matter of putting it all together and seeing how we can tackle this within the budgets. So that's what we're working on, but really excited to be able to at least build the, the asset database, because we don't have that. In GIS, we had the water system identified, flush valves, all that. That's already in there. Sanitary sewer, same thing, manholes, all that. We have all that. Even the storm sewer, which is the piping in the streets, that's already in our database. We had the ditches identified, but we don't have the piping that's coming in of the ditches. And so that's, as part of the ditch evaluation, we're also identifying those assets to put into the database. So when we're done with this, it'll be awesome to be able to go in and assess each year, each quarter, whatever, and run the ditches, run them after natural disasters, hurricanes and things, just to see how we held up and really go through and continue to assess. I think ultimately we'll build a aggressive maintenance plan for each of the muds. And start to build some of that into the budget as well, just to keep up with maintenance. The good news is most of the ditches look really good from a standpoint of flowability. They're not really silted in. I mean, there's pockets here and there around, but overall, the ditches look actually pretty good. It's just the piping and around it. And when the piping fails, that can then cause a problem with the ditch flow itself. If everything sloughs in, then you're gonna have siltation and blockage and things like that. So that's why it's critical.
Some ditches on the golf course. Is the golf course responsibility or our responsibility?
From my understanding, typically they'll maintain the areas that cross the poles and we'll maintain the areas outside of that. And they typically are in most
Because
cases.
some of the ditches, at least on the north or the west golf course of the trails is in pretty bad shape from an erosion viewpoint. I think the flow is there, but there massive erosion's been going on and nobody's done anything about it.
Got massive trees now too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the areas that are under our responsibility, we'll document all that. We have not gotten over there yet to where you're identifying. But we will here in the next few weeks.
So that's famously where I sunk in quicksand and I remember I almost had to be pulled out by EMTs, but I made it out
Anything else?
just several years ago.
Wanted to give you an update that the trustees nominated and voted me to be the WWA representative on the GRP committee. So I've had an orientation and the first meeting is scheduled for January 21st. So I'll be attending that first meeting then. And what I'll likely do is probably going forward, provide an update in the trustee meeting, which we can document and share with you at the med level as well going forward. Yeah, just to give an update on what's going on with that. John's going to handle that. One other thing I had a couple comments for the trustee meeting, but I think that's all I have for my report.
Quick question. When's the next community group, working group meeting? Or do we have that set yet?
We do. It's going to be February 5th. So we did have, that's right, we didn't cover some of this in December. We did have our first community work group meeting. Remember what the date was? It was in early December, I
The
believe.
10th, there's,
Yeah.
but really December.
Went very well. A good introduction to the group. They seemed very interested in getting involved. This next meeting, we're really going to dig into kind of how things are funded and kind of how the MUDs work and the relationship with the WWA and how all that works. And then we'll start continuing to tackle some of the big issues. So one of the things that we do need to cover is identifying a alternate. So Mindy is your lead. And what we identified in the CWG group was in case a representative can't make it, it'd be nice to have an alternate just in case. So we didn't identify alternates when we were identifying the leads. So I would ask if y'all would like to nominate or anyone interested in being a backup alternate in case Mindy can't make that go.
Okay,
Want to be? Perfect.
okay.
All right, thank you.
Did you
Put it in there.
have some, you had asked for if there was anybody else that needed to be on the committee. Did you have some recommendations?
There's, one for sure in particular, and we're working on that. One of the VAs is needing to change their representation.
Yeah.
And it's ironically is in the same VA that the candidate that we were talking about
Yeah.
was in.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're working on
Work
right now.
stuff out,
So,
okay.
to get that updated. And then lastly, the trustees also approved if you recall back in, this is a while ago, but fall of 2022, the PEC developed a strategic communication plan, which was implemented and started in 2023. And then it was updated in 2024. So both of the last years, we've been, John, and all of the content that you see on whether it's email or the weekly or all the social media stuff that we send out, that's all as a result of the strategic communication plan. This is kind of the framework that helps us identify the topic material that we would present throughout the year. And so each year we kind of go through it, see if there's any adjustments for the next year. And that's the process that we just went through. And we presented that to trustees and they approved it. The main change that we made to the overall plan was to incorporate dialogue around kind of tying it into water renewal of the woodlands. That, you know, the typical topics, as you can see in here, are water value, water quality, those types of things, but also incorporating the water renewal of woodlands as an aspect within those different topics, if that makes sense. We were already kind of doing that starting last year, but that's what was updated. So.
Can we send this to the other directors or you want to wait until you finalize?
No, it's good. Yeah, we can send it. It might be in, okay, if it's not in your
Wasn't in the
packet,
packet, but I was,
yeah, we'll make copies.
Okay.
Or we'll send it out.
yeah, send it out on.
Yeah, I encourage you to read it because that's really what we
Good.
live by when it comes to trying to educate and be transparent with the community. That's the information that we're running off of.
Okay, anything else?
I'm really tired of saying this, but John, you're doing a terrific job.
Very much a team effort.
It is. Good job. Anything else, sir?
No.
All right. Do we have to make a motion to approve the general manager's report?
I so move.
Okay, second on it, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
We did have John, I did want to have John give the communications piece of that.
okay, yeah, we'll do it.
Yeah, morning.
Yeah.
Page 63 is your report. Standard report, you've got, examples of current materials there, but I did really want to touch on one thing this morning, which is your annual report. So each year, the MUD's been sitting for the last couple of years. Around this time, the MUD's been working on an annual report summarizing what you did last year and then looking ahead to 2025. So there is a template, which would basically be last year's report, that I can provide to you, and we're simply going to update that, those bullet points within that template. I did not print that out for you. I'm happy to email it to you. It's also online. It lives online year round under your MUD tab. But the process that we've used in the past is to identify one of you to work with directly to get those bullets solicited, go back and forth, make sure you're all good with the text, and then I'll make it look pretty, and we'll send it out with the February bill on March 1, essentially.
Okay.
So we got a little time, but we need to wrap it up within middle of the month. We'll say the 15th of February. So is there-
Did it last year. Yeah, would you
I'll
take it this
do
year?
that, yeah.
Okay, great, okay.
You can send us a copy of, and then we.
Yeah, I'll
forward our
I'll send it to
comments,
all
but
of you,
maybe
and
if
then
you could forward it to you.
however you want to gather those bullets and send them to me, that's up to you. But we'll put together the two notes. Okay, so I'll send you an email with your last year's report. We'll go from there.
And then I would request every member to make your comments, send it to Mindy, and then you can forward the final thing to
You
John.
got it. Sounds
Okay.
good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, the trustees report, I was gonna bring up the communication plan, but that's been covered. Carollo made a presentation on the wastewater treatment. They're gonna do some concrete quote testing, and so that was approved, and the rest of the information's in the section on the trustees report. Item 24, we have no need to close session. 25, 26, any matters for future agenda items?
Nothing?
You have nothing? Nothing at all?
Surprise? Absolutely nothing.
Let's put on there.
And I
Bob had
move-
Nothing for the next.
And I move that we do add absolutely nothing to the next
Okay,
agenda.
item 27, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Somebody-
Second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.